The State Duma Committee on Housing and Utilities has called for abandoning the practice of starting the heating season simultaneously in all cities and districts. This initiative was put forward by the Deputy Chairman of the Housing and Utilities Committee, Vladimir Koshelev. His words: "We should abandon the one-size-fits-all approach. Modern technologies allow us to think in a targeted and flexible way and to seriously consider a transition to zoned or phased regulation. The heating season can be started not for the entire district at once, but first for buildings most susceptible to heat loss, old, dilapidated buildings with uninsulated facades." Koshelev suggests applying the same procedure for turning off the heating as well. Currently, city and district heads issue decrees establishing a unified schedule for starting heating in municipalities. Of course it's right, says Koshelev, because he doesn't live in such buildings and isn't concerned about heating. But they have to save money somewhere, and the savings have to come at the expense of the people. They save money on the poorest. That's why this targeted heating activation is proposed, so that every resident has to run around and prove that their particular building really needs the heat turned on because their house is falling apart and can't retain warmth, instead of saying, let's repair the building and reduce heat loss. But he says that you just need to turn it on earlier in some places and in others later. People live in very poor quality concrete buildings. All concrete buildings in Russia are of poor quality. They're damp, they trap moisture in the concrete. You feel awful. Your arms and legs start to ache. There were even rumors that some concrete blocks had been exposed to radiation somewhere, or something else like that. There were all sorts of sabotage going on everywhere. And what about now? And now, instead of properly heating and running the heating season as it should be, the smartest man in our country, Vladimir Koshelev, as in Koshelek, wallet, of course, he suggests not turning on the heating for you when the utility companies had planned to. That is, the city heads had scheduled the exact day when the heating should be turned on for everyone at the same time. But Koshelev suggests running around and lifting a leg here and there, turning it on in one place, then in another, just like that very Polygrafovich, Sharikov, and Schwonder. Cold concrete buildings are always cold and concrete. If you don't turn on the heating during the rainy season, they'll get damp and you'll just end up with wet concrete floors. And then just try to dry them out afterwards. Today, the website of Pukovo Airport was hacked. Today, September 19th, 2025, the website was hacked. Its operation is currently limited. It is reported that restoration work is underway. Websites seem to be getting hacked more and more often, and the airport actually benefits from this. In the US, there has been an increase in asylum denials and deportations for Russians. After Donald Trump returned to power, US courts have noticeably toughened their approach to cases involving Russians seeking asylum, whereas previously such requests were more often granted. In recent months, according to legal professionals and lawyers, at least 100 people have already been forcibly deported back to Russia, facing uncertain futures. Even participation in anti-war rallies, detentions, and fines for discrediting the army, circumstances that lawyers call a strong case, no longer guarantee a positive decision. Some judges explain the denials with statistics. For example, one of them calculated the probability of arrest in Russia by dividing the number of criminal cases under anti-war articles, over 1,100, by the number of reports to Roskomnadzor, and even reports, about 300,000. That comes out to less than 10%. He concluded that the risk for applicants is not significant. Another judge asked Russians about the number of followers they have on social media, assuming that only relatively well-known opposition figures are in danger. Lawyers and human rights activists expect that the number of refusals and deportations will only continue to grow. But what do you think? Donald Trump is a friend of Putin. Putin needs everyone to return home. Do you think Donald Trump will send refugees back home for Putin? He will. This is a measure where one friend helps another. Donald Trump is helping Putin gather people for the war. Donald Trump is, after all, the President of America. And the United States, they are also interested in the war because they have wealthy people who own ships and factories. They want to get rich from the war. And for the war to continue, it's necessary to provide at least some minimal number of Russian people. Later, they'll buy Koreans, Chinese, and then they'll go into battle. But there should at least be some Russian faces appearing as well. Not just Chinese faces, otherwise, it will immediately become obvious that it's the Chinese who are fighting. A tax on the rich or resignation. The Prime Minister of France faces an ultimatum. The political future of French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu depends on resolving the crucial question: how to tax French billionaires. No way. They won't allow themselves to be taxed. Absolutely not. They'll take it from the people. In exchange for their support in Parliament, the Socialists are demanding that the 2026 budget include a 2% tax on large personal fortunes, which would affect just 1/100% of France's population. Despite broad public support for this measure, it is met with rejection by the Prime Minister's right-wing allies and opponents. Le Cornu, an ally of President Emmanuel Macron, who last week became France's fifth Prime Minister in less than 2 years, is rushing to prepare the draft budget by October 7th. Again, October 7th? In Israel, it was October 7th. But in France, it seems there's also some kind of October 7th coming up. Russia's largest oil port on the Baltic has not been able to return to full capacity after a drone strike. The port of Primorsk on the Baltic Sea, the largest of Russia's western oil ports, has so far been unable to return to full capacity after a drone attack on the night of September 12th. Although oil shipments at the port have resumed, it is operating at reduced capacity. Most likely, the oil shipment schedule from Primorsk this month will be delayed by several days. In August, Russian oil companies exported an average of 970,000 barrels of crude oil per day through Primorsk. This is roughly 30% of the total maritime exports. Each week, 9 to 11 tankers with a dead weight of up to 150,000 tons departed from the port. The port's capacity also allows for the export of 300,000 barrels of diesel fuel daily. Putin has been informed, but hold on, country. Putin was told about the creation of a sanitary shield against biological threats in Russia. If they're creating a shield, well, first of all, they won't actually create it. What kind of shield is this? What does this shield look like? Can you tell me? And secondly, does this mean they're planning to use biological weapons now? The head of Rospotrebnadzor, Anna Popova, reported to Vladimir Putin on the progress of the federal project Sanitary Shield, which was launched in 2021 to protect against biological threats. During the launch of new sanitary and epidemiological surveillance facilities, where Putin participated via video conference, Popova stated that the project is being carried out on schedule. We have, let's say, completed about half of the Sanitary Shield project, and we still have 4 years ahead of us. We have implemented all the provisions of the Sanitary Shield on time. All our targets have been fully met. All the tasks set for the period from 2020 to 2025 are being carried out absolutely clearly and on schedule. According to her, 124 new tests have already been developed in the country, allowing infections to be detected within an hour. This, Popova emphasized, enables specialists to respond quickly to changes in the epidemiological situation. In addition, a new method for testing the toxicity of drinking water has been introduced in 26 regions, with more than 11,000 samples taken. The development of laboratory infrastructure and scientific institutions is progressing at an accelerated pace. These are the Rospotrebnadzor systems, created many years ago, which ensure a high level of response. Popova also stated that the agency is recording risks of new infections emerging, including those related to the development of synthetic biology. So, friends, what have we just read? What did she say? What does this mean? Do you remember the fairy tale, "But the emperor has no clothes"? Two tailors were making clothes, sewing away. Millions were pouring in for them, pouring in. They kept getting payouts from the state treasury over and over, million after million, gold after gold. But in reality, the king came out naked. He had no choice but to look at himself in the mirror and think that it was just him seeing himself naked. But in reality, everyone sees that very same biological shield. What does it look like? It's something, well, huh? It's something unbearably terrible. Terrible because theft is happening at an accelerating pace. In the country, things are being stolen at an accelerating rate. And then we're told that utilities won't be turned on in time for the heating season because money needs to be saved. But for whom? For them, for the sanitary shield. Some kind of shield. Some kind of samples? They're taken all the time. They don't depend on the shield. So what then? Testing the toxicity of drinking water. Isn't that done all the time? It is. So what's their angle then? 124 new tests? What exactly are they testing there, huh? What are they going to test and then tell us they've tested? When a virus or a strain is developed, all these tests are already prepared in advance. But here it's just about writing off the money. That's how I see it, friends. I don't know, maybe some of you work in these organizations and know better. Let me know. This is just my personal opinion that all this stuff is like the story The Emperor's New Clothes, or rather, the Emperor's Robe. The sanitary shield is the Emperor's robe. And here's another point on the same topic about various Russian conclusions. In Russia, the punishment for prisoners who escape from the front will be toughened. Prisoners recruited for the war will face longer sentences for unauthorized absence from their unit, desertion, and evasion of military duties by feigning illness or by other means. Such amendments have been approved by the Government Commission on Legislative Activities. This concerns citizens who have already been convicted and released from punishment, as well as those whose criminal cases were suspended after signing a contract with the Ministry of Defense. For unauthorized absence from their unit or failure to report to their place of service without valid reasons for a period of 2 to 10 days, they will be sentenced to 2 to 6 years in a penal colony. For absence lasting a month, the sentence will be from 3 to 8 years, and for more than that, from 7 to 12 years. Currently, the maximum punishment for all these cases is 5, 7, and 10 years, respectively. If a service member commits a crime during mobilization, martial law, armed conflict, or active combat operations. For desertion with a weapon or as part of a group, the minimum sentence will be 10 years. For faking illness, self-inflicted injuries, or forging documents, the sentence will be 7 to 12 years instead of the current 5 to 10 years. NATO ships carried out a special operation due to a suspicious Russian vessel off the coast of Sweden. A special operation by the NATO fleet was carried out in the Öresund Strait off the coast of Sweden, prompted by a suspicious Russian fishing vessel. The operation involved Swedish Coast Guard ships as well as vessels from the Danish and British fleets. The incident took place last Saturday. The mechanic Stepanov, a 50-meter-long fishing vessel that had only been launched in September 2025 and was located in Swedish territorial waters, began drifting toward Denmark due to engine problems. At the same time, the electricity on board the vessel was cut off. The Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs told TV2 that the Russian vessel was escorted by warships of the Royal Navy and the British Navy. However, the military did not share any details.